Welcome to We Are Women, Unapologetically, the podcast that talks about the good, bad, ugly, and awesome. Careers, life transitions, confidence, and everything in between. Because shift happens, but you don't have to do it alone.
In this two-part series, we'll discuss how to recognize role drift, how to separate real growth from quiet overload, how to document and change it, and how to protect your career before invisible work becomes the permanent expectation.
I need you to be honest. When is the last time you looked at your calendar, really looked at it, and thought, how did all of this become my job? People are not getting promoted. Their roles are stretching. Nobody's changing their title. Nobody's changing their pay. Nobody's holding a meeting where they announce, congratulations, you now do the work of 2.5 people, same pay, same salary, same job description. Enjoy. But somehow your day looks nothing like what you signed up for. You're in more meetings, you're supporting more people, you're answering questions that used to belong to somebody else entirely. You are carrying the work from a role that doesn't even exist anymore. You're managing expectations that were never officially even assigned to you. Every time you tell yourself it's probably temporary, another week passes, and then another, and then another. And before you know it, temporary has moved in, unpacked its bags, redecorated your office, and is starting to get mail on your desk. That is role drift, and that is one of the most undernamed career threats in today's workplace. The reorg series that we just finished was about leading people through disruption. This episode is about what happens to your role after the disruption. This is all about career protection. Because if your role gets expanded and nobody names it, you don't get credit for it. You get burnt out. It happens after reorgs, layoffs, hiring freezes, budget cuts. It happens after leadership changes and after every well-meaning rollout of an AI tool that somehow translates into people expecting twice the output from the same human being. The work doesn't disappear, it moves. And it almost always moves to the most capable person in the room. Now, if that's you, that is a strength, but it can become a setup when there's no structure around it. Because when your role keeps expanding without a formal conversation, you may be operating inside an invisible promotion. More responsibility with the same title, more complexity with the same pay, and more risk with the same recognition. That's where the quiet burnout starts, a slow, steady leak. A little more irritated every Monday, a little more depleted every Wednesday, and a little more resentful every Friday. Here's what I'd like you to remember. You do not protect your career by hoping someone notices. You protect your career by making the invisible visible before resentment becomes your default operating mode. Welcome to We Are Women Unapologetically. I am your host, Jessica Cumming. This episode is for the person who's opened their laptop this week and thought, wait, when did all this become mine? It's for the manager who inherited someone else's entire workload after a reorg with no updated title and no updated pay to go with it. This is for the senior individual contributor who is operating like a team lead, but nobody has officially said it out loud. It's for the program manager holding together 3 work streams that used to have 3 separate owners. And it is for the woman who keeps hearing, we trust you with this, but somehow that trust never comes attached to a title change, compensation, conversation, or even acknowledgement that what she is carrying has fundamentally changed. Here's the thing that I want us to look at today. You want to grow, but growing and being quietly overloaded are not the same thing. Growth is intentional, growth is visible, role drift is none of those things. And today, we're going to get very clear on what the differences are. First, I want to start off with identifying what a role drift actually is. Because what I find is that when people can actually label what is happening to them, they stop feeling crazy and start being strategic about how to change it. Role drift is when your actual responsibilities quietly expand beyond your formal role with no real conversation about what changed. The work changed, but not the agreement. Your daily reality changed, but your title didn't, and your accountability expanded, but your authority is still the same. And here's what makes it so insidious. Nobody sends a calendar invite called, your role is about to become unrecognizable. It usually begins completely reasonable. And it typically sounds like this. Can you cover this for now? Can you just sit in on these meetings? Can you be the point person just temporarily? Can you support this until we backfill the role? You already know the background. Can you just take this one? Every single one of those asks makes sense in isolation. And that is exactly what makes role drift so hard to catch. It's not one massive unreasonable demand. It is 100 small reasonable asks that quietly build into an unreasonable role. It is a death by 1,000 paper cuts. There's actually a workplace term for the organizational side of this, and it's called quiet hiring. Gartner defines this as companies gaining needed skills and capabilities without adding new full-time employees. They do this through stretched assignments, internal movement, and redirecting existing employees towards higher priority work. Now, don't get me wrong, because that is not automatically a bad thing. Stretch work can be strategic. And we all know that visibility can open real doors. I'm not telling you to run from every new assignment, but here is the line you have to watch. Stretch without structure becomes a strain, and strain without intervention becomes a career that is busy, but it's not moving. So the question is never just, can I do this? The real question is, what is this role becoming? Because if nobody names what is actually happening, nobody has to account for it. And you're going to be the one that will keep absorbing the gap while the organization keeps assuming everything is fine, because you were the one that keeps allowing it. So how do you know if what you're really living with is growth or if it's role drift? Let's break it down. Both involve new work, both can feel uncomfortable, both can come with more visibility. Discomfort alone is not a signal, so don't use that as your test, but here's what actually separates them. Growth has a direction. There is a development conversation, there is feedback, there is some acknowledgement, even if it's an informal one, that you are operating at a new level and that it is going somewhere. Growth stretches you and then it expands what is possible for you. Whereas role drift, it has a pile. More expectations, less definition. More accessibility and not always more authority. The work continues to pile up, but the pathway does not appear. That is the test. It's not whether it's hard or new, but whether it is going somewhere for you or if it is just going somewhere for the business. Now, I want to talk to you specifically here because this is where we get ourselves in trouble. Many of you have built your entire career on being able to handle things. You can handle the pressure, the ambiguity, the difficult stakeholders, the messy middle, and workloads that would send other people straight to HR. And yes, that is genuinely impressive. But this is what I really need you to hear. I can handle it. It's not a role design strategy. It is an endurance strategy. The most dangerous career trap for high performers is quietly becoming indispensable in ways that don't even advance you. Becoming the person the organization cannot function without while never becoming the person the organization formally invests in. So stop asking the only question of, can I do this? Start asking better questions. Should this actually belong to me? Is this temporary or becoming permanent? What did this role replace and what am I no longer doing because this was added? How will this reflect my goals, my title, my compensation, or my career path? Because growth develops you. Role drifts drain you. Growth has a path, role drift has a pile. Know which one you're standing in. Now, I want to take a moment here because a lot of you might be thinking, why is this happening so much right now? And I'm here to tell you that I hear people questioning themselves. They are wondering if they are imagining it or if they are being dramatic about it. And I'm here to tell you that you are not. The data actually backs it up. Organizations right now are under enormous pressure to reduce costs, increase productivity, adopt new technology, and retain talent, all without consistently adding headcount. That combination right there creates the perfect environment for a role drift to thrive. Deloitte's 2025 Global Human Capital Trends Report found that 73% of organizations say reinventing the manager's role is important, but only 7% say that they are actually making meaningful progress on. So roles are actually, in theory, being reinvented, but the operating models are not catching up. The work is getting redistributed informally to whoever is capable and available, which, if you're a high achiever, is typically you. The same report found that 54% of workers and leaders are concerned about blurred distinctions between work done by humans and work done by technology. And that's important to know because unclear boundaries are not just about headcount. They are also about the fact that nobody has properly defined what humans own anymore. And then there's AI, which adds a whole new layer of complexity in the conversation. I am not anti-AI. I think that these tools can be genuinely powerful, but I want to talk about something that's happening in a lot of organizations. A new tool doesn't automatically fix unclear ownership. It just makes an unclear system move faster. When AI gets introduced into a team where roles were already fuzzy, the expectation often becomes, you should be able to produce more now. Process this faster, automate that, summarize this, and maybe some of that is true. But if the role itself hasn't been redesigned, AI can quietly become one more justification for compressing work into the same human being. That's not transformation. And Gallup's burnout research identified the top drivers as unmanageable workload, unclear communication from managers, lack of support, and unreasonable time pressure. Now map that directly into a role drift, the unmanaged expansion of responsibility with no communication, no support structure, and no breathing room. This is exactly what happens when work moves faster than the agreements around it, which is why we're having this conversation today. I want you to be able to name what's happening while you still have the energy and the clarity to be strategic about it. And I want to give you a real example of this. There was a time in my career when someone else was chosen for a role, and I moved on. Or at least I told myself I moved on. Someone else was now in the seat. The decision had been made, and I genuinely thought, okay, the work belongs over here now. I can focus on what is in front of me. Except then the questions kept finding their way back to me. People needed context, history, and they needed someone who understood the background. Instead of going to the person who now was in the role, they kept coming to me. Because I was familiar, I was accessible, and quite honestly, I still answer the questions. At first, I answered because that's what we do. We help, we keep things moving, we try to make transitions easier for everybody, even when the transition isn't easy for us. But after a while, I had to get real with myself. Why were these questions still coming to me? And more importantly, why did I keep answering them? That is what role drift can look like. It's not always a massive project landing on your plate. Sometimes it is just people continuing to treat you like you are the owner of something, even after the ownership was supposed to move. And if you keep responding like the owner, the organization learns that the transition is working. And that brings me to one of the truest things that I know about role drift. You cannot be expected to release the title and still carry the responsibilities. This happens constantly. You move on from something officially, but unofficially, people still use you as a backup system. They use you as the institutional memory and the person who just knows. Every time that you show up for that, you are teaching the organization that that arrangement works. In order to make the invisible visible in a situation like that, it sounds something like this. I want to make sure that we're routing this correctly. This should go directly to her now. I'm happy to give context this one time, but going forward, this needs to sit with whoever owns the new role. This is not being cold or dismissive to their needs, but rather providing professional clarity. And that clarity protects everybody, including the person who is supposed to own it now. I know some of you are living your own version of this right now, opening laptops after dinner because the whole day got consumed by other people's questions and follow-up, and now you still actually have your job to do. If this episode resonated with you, send it to someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And come back next week for part 2. We'll talk about the red flags of role drift and how to recalibrate the role before it costs you more than it should.
And if you are ready to stop navigating this alone, whether it's a career conversation, a role recalibration, a next move decision, or just getting clear on what you actually want, book a clarity call with me. And until next time, stay fierce, stay bold, but most importantly, stay unapologetically you.